Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reality Realness with 3 S's. I'm your host, Chantele Francis, here with a very special exit interview with Mary Jo. And with me to chat about this episode and this banishment is my co-host, Mel B. How are you doing, Mel B? And Mary Jo, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, ladies.
Mary Jo, I don't want to talk to you yet. I don't want this to be real.
I know. Let me check you ladies out. Oh, you're super cute. Yeah, no, I know. Should we just take a moment of mourning?
Yes, please. Now, I just have to say, I'm like a big fan of The Real Housewives. How did you feel about being told that this was an amazing audition for the Real Housewives series?
Well, I've been asked to do The Real Housewives.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
cool.
I've been asked to do Beverly Hills, and I was asked to do The Real Housewives of Toronto. So I actually live in Los Angeles, but I'm from Toronto. So I had quite a career in Toronto. I did lots of TV and radio and everything. So I turned down The Real Housewives of Toronto. Gotta say, I turned down that one.
I mean, I did watch, so I would have loved to
but
send you on it.
I'll send it to Andy if he's up for it. I'll send it. Why not? Right? What the hell?
Amazing. Well, how did you get from Beverly Hills to the Traitors Canada? How did that journey happen?
Well, it was, the woman who cast the show actually has been asking me to do stuff for years. She's been reaching out and saying, why don't you do this? And I'm like, no way. She wanted me to do The Amazing Race and other things. And I wasn't into it. And then she called me about Traitors. And I was like, this show sounds kind of interesting. And then my son is like a huge fan. He's totally obsessed. And he said, Mom, if you don't do this show, I'll never talk to you again. And so I started checking it out. And I'm like, I think this is something that I would really enjoy doing. It seems like fun. You use your brain, you use your physical. And I thought, I'm going to do it. But I wasn't proactive about it. So I kept getting the call and I wouldn't answer. And then finally I did. And I said, you know what have I got to lose? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I decided to do it. And I'm so glad I decided to do it. Thrilled.
Now, had you watched any other seasons before you came on to this one?
Yeah, I did a little deep dive. Some of my friends are on the US version, Phaedra and Brandy. And, Phaedra kicked ass. Phaedra was so great. So I watched that and I talked to her about it and she was great. And then I watched the UK version, which I really like, and it's no celebrities. And I thought that was a great version. And I started watching, I think maybe Australia, but it didn't capture me. So the UK version I really enjoyed. So I was like, I'm hooked. I'm in. I'm hooked on this show. It's a great show.
So you went into this season as a faithful.
Yes.
Would you prefer to be a traitor? Like, how do you feel about how you were positioned in this game to play?
I wanted to be a traitor. I wanted to be a traitor. That's what I really wanted. I was really surprised I wasn't asked to be a traitor. I wanted to be a traitor. And I thought I would be. It would be a good narrative for me. But, well, I guess you were a traitor on the show. But when you do get crowned a faithful, there is a certain amount of relief in it because you're like, it's a lot of pressure to carry the traitor crown. And you're like, okay, I can just be authentic and I can just be myself. So I was very calm after I got the diagnosis that I was going to be a faithful, but I would have killed to have been a traitor. I would have loved to have been a traitor.
So going into the show, wanting to be a traitor, did you have a traitor strategy? And then how did you adapt once you realized that wasn't going to play out?
I think my traitor strategy, and it was starting to show on in the house, is I'm really good with people. I'm, except Enoch.
He loves you though.
He is so in love with me. He's blowing up my phone. I'm in love with him. So I'm really good at people and reading people, and I just would have ingratiated myself fully, and empathy and connection. That's what it's all about, right? And right off the top, I believe in the first episode, I knew Netta was a traitor. I knew she was a traitor right off the bat because we were in the helicopter together, and then when we did the round table and we took off our blindfolds, her transformation was unbelievable.
Really?
She became like this proud queen, and this confidence oozed out of her, and just looked around the table because she was so sweet and acquiesced so much to me. Like, A few times I kicked her out of the car because I didn't trust her. I was like, no, you can't get in the car. And she was very, very sweet. And then, of course, after the show, I found out that she had like this history on another show and she was so formidable. And like, why didn't anybody else bring that up? Nobody
Maybe
brought
they
it up.
didn't know. So I guess one thing I was going to ask is when you arrived on, in the helicopter, which was a pretty amazing entrance, did you
Yeah,
notice or recognize anybody else, your fellow contestants, when you kind of arrived at the manor?
nobody.
Wild.
Nobody. But obviously the gays right away, gaydar. I had my little gay posse. And then Enoch, because I love football. So I really related to him. So can I say names that I bonded with? Am I allowed to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
So, Dylan, Kirkland. I love both those guys. Enoch, Kevin, and Netta and Gail. Were just great off the bat. And I know Gail trusted me completely. Aaron was kind of in and out. Like Aaron was like, we can do this game to the end together, but he's kind of slippery. But, that was sort of the group at the beginning, but definitely had a nice posse. And I thought I was going under the radar until we did that horse challenge and my name was on every single question. And I'm like, maybe they're kind of gunning for me because every question was on, right?
Well, you said that you wanted to be a traitor to begin with. Who would your ideal team be? Like, who would you have wanted to work with as traitors?
Who would be a fun team?
Or your ideal or fun, whatever you want to judge it.
Well, I think me, obviously. I think Kevin. Kevin, come on. Was that not a perfect opportunity for a great traitor? I think
it'd be fun. He'd be a lot of fun.
The nicest guy. He's been on all these other shows. That's why I thought, why not give him the traitor thing? So, and then I think for the third, just Dylan, because he's such a hot mess. And if we wanted to get rid of him, we could get rid of him and Kevin and I could go to the end. But I think it would be a pretty affable, fun sort of team. And a really personable. And then Dylan's that liability, right? Like if he drives us crazy, he's out. So I think Kevin would have been great. I think it would have been interesting.
I think this cast in general is really great, and I can see so many awesome combinations of people. But I think that would be really fun to watch, especially if you have the intention of like, all right, we'll just get rid of Dylan if he's not really working in our favor.
Oh yeah, that would happen, and then there might be a recruit, but he would blow himself up, which would be fine. We wouldn't mind that, but he's also a super bright guy, right? He's a really, really smart guy. So it would have been a fun ride. But I think they missed some great opportunities for some great traders in that cast. That's my personal opinion, but I would have loved it. I would have loved to have been a trader. Loved it.
Would have been great. Would you ever do another one of these type of shows again? If there was like a, returning season of the Traitors, would you ever come back?
I would. I would, because it was. I mean, you must know from being on the show, right? Like I've done reality TV in LA. It's a different thing. But this, you kind of need to get your bearing a little bit, I found, because my objective going in wasn't necessarily to win or go to the end. But then once you're in there, you're like, oh, maybe I want to win and go to the end. I had a couple objectives. I wanted to be on the poster and, I wanted to go out with a bang and I didn't want to get murdered, basically. Yeah. But now talking to the other castmates, if I hadn't have had that thing with Enoch, maybe I could have gone a lot further. But I was always up for murder. I think that was always going to perhaps be in my future. But again, I sat down beside Enoch that breakfast, and that was the death nail, right? So that's the game.
So, like, was there a moment? Like, was that the moment that you pinpoint where you knew that your game was over? Like, did you have a sense about it? Like, when did it hit you that, oh my God, I think it's me today?
After breakfast, sort of, because I brought up Kevin, but Enoch, I could see him panicking. He was sort of panicking. And I also on camera, I said, there are some people coming for Kevin. I think I even told Kevin, and I told Kevin, I'm not sure, right? Like I'm kind of sitting in this space where in my brain, I'm thinking this guy would actually be perfect. He's affable, he's athletic, he's sweet, like it's a pretty great combination. So I was honest with him. And then I could see Enoch freaking out, but he had started it the day before. And then I could see all during the day at the corner of my eye, like the bros together, like all huddled, obviously having these, these discussions about me. So I tried to connect with Enoch a few times about it, and he was just not having any of it.
Well, now everything that you're doing is just going to be a confirmation bias towards like him thinking that you're a traitor. So you kind of you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't at this point with him, unfortunately.
Right. And so I was like, I had a big decision to make when we went to the roundtable. I mean, I don't think aside from those guys, anybody was thinking of me. Netta actually really liked me. I think Netta would have been happy to take me quite far. So it was Enoch who had really started that whole thing. But other people, I think, were really surprised they ended up voting for me at the roundtable, right? It was like that herd mentality. So literally before we went into the roundtable, I looked at Enoch and he would not look me in the eye. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going to happen. And then maybe my friend Kirkland gave me a heads up, kind of, when we could, legally, it wasn't illegal. I might get ambushed at the roundtable. So before we sat down, I had to make a decision. Was I going to sit there and let them come at me? Or was I just going to go? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go.
It was definitely an impactful, like amazing roundtable, and your exit was amazing. So I think you did what you wanted to do there. I thought it was awesome. Unfortunately, I didn't like how it ended, but I thought it was great.
Sorry, what did you say? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
No, I'm just saying that like it was an impactful, like really you went out with a bang. I didn't want to see you go, but like I thought your exit was amazing. So you definitely did that.
It was a conscious decision though. And it's weird because as you know, you're doing the show, no phones, no computers. You're like with this, you're not really sleeping much or eating much. And so you're kind of isolated, and then you're about to go with, these 22 people, and you have to decide, and it's coming. And do you really want to sit there and go, oh, well, I don't know. Or do you want to go, by the way, and I could have almost squeaked by. Because they went after Kirkland. So it was really, really close. I don't think people wanted to vote for me. That's the impression I got. I'm sure some people did, but I think in general, people were like, everybody else is, so I'm going to. So
what were your thoughts about the death row at the beginning of the first episode? Like when you get there, people needing to step forward to be one of 5 people that could potentially could be murdered. First off, how did you feel about that, and why didn't you step forward?
Because I thought it was stupid, and I was not going to step forward. There was no benefit to stepping forward. Why? Especially if you're like a target in any way. Why would you do that and put yourself in that situation? So no, I had no desire to. And I thought, 20% chance you're going home. And, we spent the day in the car with Lauren the next day. She was like bawling, crying her eyes out, like, realizing, what could happen. And Kevin was really shook by it too. And then, of course, Chris gets eliminated, who I have to say was the sweetest, nicest, best guy. I just loved him. So we were all shocked when he went. But I guess my concern was if people didn't volunteer, she was going to go through and pick who would go. So, they went.
Scary.
That was I was with a group of people and they were like, oh no, we're not doing this. This is not happening on any level. We're not going to, offer ourselves up for death row. So, I don't think the smartest move to put yourself in death row. Truthfully, I think it caused a lot of anguish for people. And, look what happened to Chris. And he was a good player. He was a really good player.
It was a really stupid thing to do. Like, period. You were smart in not volunteering for that, because I absolutely agree. You're basically giving yourself a 1 in 5 chance of going home on day 1, which is why? Why would you do
Terrifying.
that?
I actually started backing up. I was like, my group was Kirkland and Netta, and we're like, oh no, hell no, we're not doing that. And then it's just like a sign of ego, and it's just like there's just something that didn't sit right about it, I think. So odd, right, that they would do that. Not the smartest move. to put
Definitely.
themselves on death row. Yeah.
So do you have any regrets with how you played the game, or something that you would have maybe wanted to have changed so maybe you'd have a different outcome?
Well, yeah, of course I would have loved to have stayed longer. At the time I was ready, I was like, this is going to be good, but then you miss the people that you're with. I think that, and again, I don't even know if this would have made a difference, but I think that probably at the round table, I would have said something along the lines of, guys, I cannot be a traitor. If you look at the horse mission, my name was on every box. Like, come on, why would I do that? And that haunts me. If I had have said that, would they have kept me? Or did it matter at that point? So that I wish I had have got that in. So that's sort of a regret, but I think it's a real learning curve about yourself as a person, like how you handle stress, how you handle pressure, the decisions you make. And I hadn't watched it. I just started watching this episode before I talked to you guys. And I'm really happy how I presented myself because it was authentic. That's just who I am. And, when you get into the swamp of it later down the line, that would, I'm okay with this, right? I'm okay with how I presented myself and how I left the show. I feel good about it, but I did miss them all when I left. I have to.
Of course. And would you say that you learned anything new about yourself that you didn't expect to kind of discover?
I think that I learned, in that moment before the round table, live and die by your decisions. Like, I made the decision, like I'm going to blow it up and go big, probably go home, or I could be quiet and acquiesce to the guys and go, I'm sorry. And I was like, I couldn't do that. So that's who I am. So that's what I did. So I had to live with it. And of course, the other lesson is, never judge a book by its cover. When you start to peel the onions back around all these people, you start to learn things you never thought. Because when you're put in a room with 21 strangers in that sort of situation, you make it, assignments and assumptions. So it taught me a lot about that too. So I thought it was a great experience.
That's great to hear.
I have to say, your round table, putting up your fight, starting the round table to begin with by calling out the guys, it just left me like wanting more. Like I was watching it going, they cannot banish her tonight. She's just coming for the guys. And then when you switched halfway through and went, you know what, Kirkland? And you put the target on Kirkland, because I think what had happened, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you went in with a plan and you thought, okay, it's me or them. I need to save my ass. This is how I'm going to do it. And I feel like you put the target on Kevin. And when you realized that wasn't gaining any momentum, but you could see a way out with Kirkland, is that what the switch was about? Is that why you kind of like put the target back on him?
No, because what happened is that Enoch was thinking that I was up all night for hours, coming up with these speeches. And I wasn't. Because you have to roll with stuff, right? So I wasn't, but okay. So 15 minutes before 20 minutes before we went to the round table,
think about it.
Enoch wouldn't look at me, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna come after me. I better formulate, like, how am I going to jump into this one and go death row with the guys? That's how I'm going to do it. And Kirkland was the one last minute who said, oh, they're coming after you. So Enoch was going, oh, you rehearsed the speech, and I was like, no, I found out like 15 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago when it was legal. That Kirkland, that this was going to happen. And and Kirkland was like, bold-faced lied. And I was like, oh, no.
It was good to watch. It was really good to watch. I loved the fight that you put up. I was looking at you going, this girl is fire. She needs to stay. I want her at every single round table. And I think it's honestly such a shame. Like I'm pissed at every episode when people get eliminated. I'm like, what is happening here? But I will say, Mary Jo, that you're in a good club, because I was also the second person banished. So you're my banishment soulmate today. So I would like to welcome you here, and maybe they'll have a second chances season.
Yeah, it's a twin flame. And let's be honest too, they don't like to keep the strong players around. I mean, they just don't.
True.
you know, especially if you're a woman, forget about it. You're not going to last very long. So that was my thinking too. But yeah, that's why Kirkland, I was like, well, now you're just lying to me. So, you know, don't you dare. And then he just kept yelling and it was like, really? But I have to tell you, when we did our roundtable, because it was so epic and it was so long, the host was laughing so hard they couldn't cut to her. And
wow.
then in the control room, the same thing. They were all laughing so hard. They just said it was a, you know, blank show in there. And because it was so crazed. But I'd look over at her and she would just be good.
Amazing.
So that's what I wanted. And I wanted to be joyous and raucous and fun. And basically to say, yeah, there's no way I'm going to stand up for myself. And if I leave, I'm good. So that's what I tried to do.
So we have two quick little games for you. One is deceive, trust, or murder. So between Netta, Kirkland, and Gail, who would you deceive, who would you trust, and who would you murder?
So, okay, Kirkland, Gail, and Netta. Oh God, this is a good question. Well, Gail's so sweet. So deceive, murder, it was trust one of them. Okay, I would trust Gail. I would deceive Kirkland, and I would murder Netta.
Ooh.
Cold blood murder.
Shots fired.
Take one of her hair bows and just murder her.
What about between Dylan, Hanok, and Kevin?
Same deal?
Yes.
I would trust Kevin now. I would, you know what? I mean, okay. So I would trust Kevin and then murder or deceive Enoch. I would deceive Enoch. I would deceive him. I would send him down a wrong path. I would just where, I don't know, he'd like be naked in mud or something horrible would happen. And I would just put Dylan out of his misery really quickly. I'd do a nice murder with Dylan. Nothing too bad, just something quick and sweet where he looked fabulous. That's what I would do. Pretty much.
And last, we'll do a quick rapid fire questions here. And you just say the first name that comes to your mind. So who is the most manipulative player?
Lauren.
Who is the most annoying?
Trina. Hold on. Is this going to be out? Are they going to see this?
They may. We can remove that if you don't want to say that.
Cedric.
Who's the funniest?
Dylan.
Which player would you love to invite and have dinner with?
Which player would I love to invite and have dinner with? Oh God, that's a really good question. Netta.
And who is the most opinionated?
Melinda.
That's coming through for sure. And who would be the worst traitor ever?
I think one of them was in the traitor group. I'm not a fan of one or two of them. I'll leave it at that, but I love Netta.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think she's awesome. I think she's great. She was a perfect fit.
Well, thank you so much, Mary Jo, for hanging out with us. Is there anything else you would like to share about your experience?
I love the experience. I love being in that group. I love being challenged mentally and physically and finding out who you are. And, you know, and also when you get off the show, you have so many regrets. You want to do things differently. So there's kind of a lesson in that. You have to sort of live with it. And then you have to wait for the edit and you have to live with that too. So I just think it was an amazing experience and I'm so glad I did it. And the cast was just a motley crew of messiness. And I loved every minute.
Well, that is amazing. Thanks again for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you so much, girls. So fun.
Yes. Thanks for coming on.
Yay.
Thank you.
Bye.